Good evening, everyone. So I'm saying to everyone, good evening, telling, and first of all, I start you big thanks for your patience and flexibility. We have very important evening today, very emotional, and I think very nice as well. So we are so grateful for our key person, Samuel, back joining us via Zoom from Boston. And we also had our Emanuelis Zingeris, who doesn't have probably a big introduction, and of the Parliament and old friend of us and one of the active members coming. But as we were joking, Emanuelis cannot do anything without surprises or that is something. And this time, he didn't do anything. He was so grateful. He wanted to join us again, but his plane was diverted and landed in New York airport for refuel or something like that. So, but he is now on his way. You already know that he's 15 minutes. So thank you for your patience. Something maybe we can start very slowly, but that's why I'm trying to do longer introduction that to be to entertain. So, and hopefully you would also join, because I mean this evening about Vilnius, about Litvaks, about Lithuanian Jews, about and also sad things like Holocaust and painful things cannot be without someone back in Emanuelis Zingeris. So we'll have to do something like that. So once again, thank you all for this flexibility and patience. We started a bit reversed. We wanted to have reception and some wine or food after we listen to such a honorable guests and participants. So we have to think, because I'm pretty sure they will make us think and reflect what happened, why that happened. What is that? And to talk and to see the world that it may be differently. But now we will have some food for our bodies, and now food for our souls and minds will be now this the discussion. So then slowly I would like to start this evening, once again thanking and saying that also this year, this is very special for us as well. It's not only, it's 700 years since Vilnius is our capital, since celebrating 700 years of anniversary of Vilnius. And Vilnius always was, since its beginning, how it began, that began with the letters of our Grand Duke Gediminas through all the world, inviting everyone to Vilnius, to live there, to be Vilnius citizens, to be part of the Vilnius, to contribute what the people know and can do, that to be or shoemakers or traders or teachers or whatever they can do, that they would find home in Vilnius and be there, and that happened. And Vilnius cannot be imaginable without Litvaks, without Jews. They were part of Vilnius, as of the whole Lithuania, for centuries. All that worked, lived together. We created together, all of us, Vilnius, other towns. The history also has very painful parts of it, and Holocaust, and how it was destroyed, how many lives perished and were killed. It's unbelievable. That's you have to remember. See. And to think someone back is one of those living legends and a wonderful person who had this painful also experience from Vilnius Ghetto, whose we will also commemorate 80 years since destruction of Vilnius Ghetto very soon in weeks. So who lives through that, and not only lives through that, but also carries that through all his life. He's the person to reflect and to show that through his work, which is testimony of what happened, but also so symbolic and so nice how he expresses and sees. I think that makes to see and to remember every time, even we see on the same picture, we can see different world. We see different world, and we are so grateful someone back. And we have, I don't know if someone sees that, his painting as well at the gate from the suite of Return to Vilnius, who donated to our embassy, and that would be really our masterpiece in our embassy as well, which means so have a look. It's also reflects. They're very grateful to Samuel Bach because his works were donated to Vilnius. They have special Bach museum. Is that already place which attracts so many tourists, so many people, not only tourists, of course, it's for the Vilnius people, first of all, for the Lithuania, who also has done, and we're so grateful as well, donated even additional works this year. So it's also of one that sacred places, I would say, in Vilnius, in Lithuania, which is words of pilgrimage and to come, and we can come every time you come, you still find different places because all the paintings speak at the different. But Samuel Bach as well, is not only talks about through his paintings, but also through his books and memories. I know you are so good. You say wonderful words, not only in the paintings, but also you say that in your books as well. So today was published, just very recently, was published in the new story of Samuel Bach, Afterlife. So it's a masterpiece. I haven't seen it, but I heard very much. It was published just a month ago or something when Samuel Bach celebrated his 90th anniversary. So congratulations to that. Samuel Bach. It's really. So I think
Thank you.
I wanted to say that this year we'll celebrate 100 years of our embassy next year. So almost that same age. You can compete. So just like this. So thank you very much. And we will see also Emanuelis Zingeris. I know how he contributed very much that Samuel Bach returned to Vilnius, came back as well. Him and the late Markas Zingeris, his brother, whom I think we also speak. They were not the people who experienced Ghetto, but they were those who were the first generation. And that's feeling still through their mother, they still so much alive with them. So they think Emanuelis will also be very emotional in talking about that. And you'll see Markas Zingeris wrote through his older works and poems and short stories and stories about that experiences as well. Emanuelis speaks with his paintings, Markas spoke with his poems, and we have also some poems to share with you and everything. And we also have special guests. Unfortunately, Samuel Bach couldn't come because of the difficult to travel, that he travels very well with Zoom, so he's usually here, he's very experienced in talking about that. But Dr. Karl Helbert, your old friend and fourth generation physician, who is from also Boston, art collector, also close friends of Samuel Bach and Bernie Bouquet, who couldn't come the last moment, something happens, but so we have to repeat some events as well. You introduce once again Samuel Bach, but before I will give you a floor, I want again to have some, I would invite Vite from our to read the president's letter, the congratulations to Samuel Bach on his 90th anniversary. So, and then I think we'll give a floor to Dr. Karl Helbert and Rosie.
Dear Mr. Samuel Bach,
Please accept my sincere congratulations to you on the occasion of your 90th birthday. It is symbolic and significant that your anniversary coincides with the 700th anniversary of Vilnius, where you were born and with which you have a special bond. Your life and outstanding personality are an inseparable part of the history and culture of not only the capital of Lithuania and of this country, but also of the entire world. Your art is a testimony to the importance of a values-based connection to one's roots, being open to them and promoting the memory of them. Through a personal prism, in a subtle artistic language, you reveal the experiences of the Holocaust and the painful past of humanity, but at the same time, you also speak the light of humanism. Today's world desperately needs your wisdom, through which the fundamental truths are embodied in your paintings, and which offers an endless hope that we will manage to keep this world on the right side of history. On this special occasion, I would like to thank you for your close ties with Lithuania and for the fact that Vilnius continues to inspire you to create. I'm grateful for your works you have given to the people of Lithuania, which enrich the treasures of this country's culture and art, and which constitute an invaluable bond between us. The museum named after you has become a prominent part of the cultural landscape of Lithuania and has turned into a vibrant space for exploring the Lithuanian Jewish world, an imminent element of the heritage of this country and the world culture, and for learning about the universal youth values. I wish you good health, strength, and many more meaningful works. Gitanas Nausėda, President of the Republic of Lithuania, Vilnius, 12th of August, 2023.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So this letter we will give the doctor over to pass that to someone. I would like to invite, and I would say Emanuelis is 10 minutes away, so hopefully we'll have so that he would also hear that.
I grew up in Florida, so I could talk real slow. Irritates people who don't do that. I am Carl Herbert. I represent Pucker Gallery, Bernie Pucker, who built the gallery over 50 years. With Sam, essentially almost 50 years, I think, at this point. And I'm a latecomer too, and I was a physician for 40 years, retired, and my retirement is the gallery, which is a very fortunate retirement to have. Also, I'm older, my memory's not good, so I'm going to throw out my notes if you bear with me, so I say what I want. And Sam, please, I beg your pardon, but I'll be talking about you as you're standing there looking at me, which is always a bit disconcerting. But if I see anything wrong, just raise your finger. Certainly, Madam Ambassador, thank you so much. It really is an honor for me to come to an organization like this and have something to say about one of the most distinguished painters in the world, frankly. Truly, that's the statue that Sam has raised to. My ties to Vilnius and to Lithuania started years ago because I was a physician in California, and my favorite basketball player was Sarunas Marciulionis. Played for the Warriors and did a great job. And just recently, the Lithuanian team beat the United States team. It's still a ways to go, but that is quite cool for them. But I've been to Vilnius with Sam back in 2017 when his museum opened for the first time, the big museum, and it was a fabulous experience to travel the city, to see the art museums that are there, the culture that's been maintained, in spite of the incredible loss that is also a part of that city's history. And Sam engages that loss on a regular basis. And we'll talk sort of more about that. Sam is, if those of you who don't know it, and if you do, that's okay, but Sam was a prolific painter. Sam is probably working on anywhere from 50 to 60 paintings now. And he has worked on as many as maybe 100 at a time. And what's happening is that there's this feeling, this emotion, these thoughts that are in Sam that he has to get on canvas. He'll tell you, the things I'm telling you, he told me. So over the years, I've gotten to know him, but that's really, and Sam, when he would go away, like he would come to Vilnius for, 2 weeks or a week or more, it was very difficult for him because he needs to paint. And he needs to paint the things that are inside of him. And what's inside of him that he paints is the richness that this world gets from the artwork he creates. He has not always painted this style. He's painted abstract paintings. He's painted various other types, all of them very well. All of them were successful aspects of his career. But what he is painting now is what's inside of him from where he started in Lithuania. And Sam started in Lithuania with an incredible childhood for about 5, 6 years, 4 or 5 years, I guess, really, before the destruction of that city, the ghetto of that city by the Germans and the liberation of the Jews occurred. He, by miraculous circumstances, and his mother survived, no one else in his family did. And so this history informs his work. It does not dictate what Sam feels. Sam feels what he's going to, but it informs all of his work. I just recently, and I think Sam's read this book by one of our art critics in the Boston Globe, but he was researching for purposes of understanding music and memory for different composers, Schoenberg being one of them, Shostakovich, Strauss, others. But he quoted Schoenberg, who wrote the survival of Warsaw, relative to the concept of what happened in the ghetto, etc. Schoenberg himself came to this country in 1933, so he didn't survive it, didn't live in it, but it hit him deeply. And he made the statement that art is the cry of distress, altered by those who experience firsthand the fate of mankind. And that might be true for Schoenberg. I think it's probably true for Sam Bach. Perhaps the most important from my perspective, and I want to mention that these statements that I'm making, or these thoughts that I want to share with you, are mine. And yours are equally as valid about Sam's work, how you feel about it, what you think the value is in it. But to me, perhaps the most important part of Sam's work is the fact that it is relevant. It is relevant today about something that may have happened here or did happen years ago and could happen tomorrow. And it's the relevance that keeps us engaged with it. There are sort of two aspects. There are many aspects of Sam's work because he works in many different ways with various aspects of representation, metaphors, but two of them that sort of, I think, for me are so important are, number one, that he represents damaged things, broken things. They can be homes that are broken, parts of it, walls, teddy bears, human forms are sometimes have wooden appendages, sometimes they're turned to stone. But this is a reflection for me of that aspect of the initial trauma and damage of what mankind is capable of doing to one another. And you see that in, if we just take a peek at this painting called At the Gate, you'll see an archway. And for me, that's an archway that sort of is reflective of the entrance to the ghetto in Vilnius, or just a Vilnius arch that are typical of the streets there. But there are no walls. The walls are gone. There's ropes hanging, holding up certain objects, the one in the middle, but it also looks almost like it's hanging that object, literally. There's clusters of 3 of trinities that you'll see in Sam's work, so 3 bottles, 3 pitchers, 3 pairs, and won't spend a lot of time on pairs, but pairs for Sam frequently will represent people or families or the future, fertility, that type of thing. And these pairs are wrapped in shrouds. So there's all that element of damaged, broken things. Sam uses still life a lot, and although this is not a table, you don't see it as a still life, the elements of a still life, which are frequently in European art, beautiful, luxurious, lovely, this is what life is about, ideal. In Sam's still lives, they're all damaged. But I think what's the second issue, and so important for me, for Sam, is that they're still there. They're not destroyed, they're damaged, they're not destroyed. They're precariously there in many situations. So precarious that you think, I'm not sure that's going to last. I'm not sure that will work. And sometimes it's almost, you think that table's going to fall over in 2 seconds, but it hasn't. It hasn't. And so it's that element of hope that I find also in Sam's paintings that allow it to sort of have a mixture of things. It's almost like a conflict. And it's that conflict of the destruction and the potential for rebirth or survival, if you will, that raises, I think, the most important question for mankind. And that is, why? Why is this? Why did it happen? And how can we potentially change it for the future? Again and again. I mean, when we had one of Sam's exhibits back in February of last year or so, the pictures from Kiev look just like Sam's paintings. Why? Because it's happening again and again. And the purpose of our working with this, why the museums, Sam now has 3 museums, just his work. That's how important people recognize it to be. And the purpose of that ultimately becomes, these are visual memorials. These are memory. These are memory that can go one generation to another. And that's what's critical about what we have to do, hopefully, to make the world a better place. Just wanted to close because if Mr. Tucker were here, and he should be here, but he would, he would want to quote one of the other artists that we've had in the gallery for many years. Had been a friend of Sam's. He was a potter, and he was a monk. And he was very spiritually involved in his work and makes some of the most beautiful pieces of pottery that you'll ever imagine. But he also had this ongoing relationship as Sam has had with Bernie. And back in the old days, they used to fax one another with 4 phones and everything else. So they would fax every day. And Bernie collected these. And and often Thomas would send a quote, just something he was thinking about. He would meditate every morning. And he wasn't a super religious person, he was a very spiritual person. But one of the quotes that Bernie likes to use, and I think is so critical or pertinent, perhaps, is that memory is more permanent than matter. And indeed, there's all sorts of monuments that have been torn down from things that have been lost. But if we can create and continue to maintain memory as generations go to generation, that memory will last for a long time. So that said, Sam, welcome. And it's yours to go with.
Thank you. I hope you hear me well. Thank you, dear friend, so much for your wonderful words. Thank you all for being there. It's an incredible honor for me, and also a kind of a recall of a painful memory of the loss of a man that I considered a friend, Markas Zingeris, who was the director of the museum in Vilnius and passed away suddenly. The painting is donated to the museum in memory of Markas Zingeris. I understand that his brother is supposed to arrive very soon.
Yes.
This painting makes me think of so many things, but it's a gate, as you can see. It's a gate that receives and maybe lets out some things, and all that made me think so much of what I wanted to tell you this evening, of how I left Vilnius and how I returned to Vilnius, and what Vilnius was for me and Vilnius is for me. I think that I will simply tell you the story, because I could not go into explanations of so many things that happened. I had the incredible fortune to survive. In 44, in July of 44, Vilnius was reoccupied by the Russians. The Germans were fleeing towards Berlin, and my mother and I, age 10, emerged from our hiding, and we found ourselves in a street that was full of rubble. There were dead soldiers that we had to bypass. The houses were black of smoke, full of bullet holes, and we went to what it was called the zoological garden, where an aunt of my mother used to live, hoping to find her there. And we found her there. And we were then among the 200 Jews that survived in Vilnius when the city was reoccupied by the Russians. It was not a very easy life. My mother had to go and look for some bread, for something to eat. She found a job. She found a job as a cleaning woman in a shop of the Russian nomenclatura. And little by little, she became there, not only a cleaning woman, she became the accountant, because my mother was a very good accountant. And this enabled us to have food, to survive the terrible hunger. People were standing for hours before some shops opened for them to give them just tidbits of stuff, and we had to eat. But meanwhile, this shop that was serving the Soviet and Lithuanian of then the communist nomenclatura was providing them French champagne, foie gras, caviar, whatever. The war was going on. People were dying of hunger. And the upper echelon of the Russians in that time was getting some luxurious stuff. It was unbelievable. But for that, there was an enormous struggle. People were on that level dismissed, taken back, and so on. And then at a certain point, my mother was called to the police, and she was told, "You will be a witness at a trial." And she said, "What kind of trial?" She said, "One of your bosses." She says, "What? Who boss? It doesn't matter." He said, what do I have to say? "Oh, we will tell you what to say. Don't worry. Don't worry." And then it became clear that we must flee the place. And on top of it, there was suddenly this other menace. I was considered then some kind of genius, And I was to be taken away from my mother and put in some school for geniuses somewhere near Moscow. Anyway, we had to flee. So after we survived the Germans, we had to flee the Soviets. And then you have seen there is a book. There is a book about my life, about the last 90 years. It's nothing compared to history of mankind. But still, in my case, it's quite important. There is a story of what happened to us. And so many years later, in the United States, in about the year 2000, a Lithuanian came to me. He telephoned. He said, I'm writing about some people who were with you hiding in a malina, and about some Lithuanians who helped you to survive. And I would like to have your witness. And I said, of course. I said, what? This is extraordinary that I can speak of them, because these are people to whom I owe my life. And I myself do not know if I would have been capable of the courage that these Christians had to save a small group of Jews, taking on themselves this frightening danger of being executed. So this Lithuanian came to my home, and at a certain point he said, why don't you come to Vilnius? I didn't want to put him into all my fears and my preoccupations. I was already maybe some more than 50 years away from Vilnius, and to go there to reopen old wounds or whatever, it always scared me. I never took such a possibility in account of my life. I knew that I do not have the courage to go there. That's the only thing, the courage to go there. So I found an excuse. I told Rimantas Stankevičius was the name of this Lithuanian, who is by now one of my dearest friends. And I said, well, you know, if one day they would have liked to have an exhibition of mine and so on. Sure enough, a short time after that, Emanuelis Zingeris calls me from Vilnius and says, we are inviting you in the name of the Jewish community and Lithuanian government and so on to come to Vilnius and have a show, something like that. What do I do now? I said, of course, yes. How can you say no? And then the whole thing was to happen in September of the famous date of 9/11. It was supposed to just happen a short time after that. But in May, I told my wife, you know, I just cannot go with a show to Vilnius without having explored very intimately, very privately the place, and to know how I feel, and to face all the memories, all the places. Let's go there very privately in May. So mid-May, we arrived to Vilnius. And suddenly, we come down the staircase of the plane, and there are people with flowers. There is even a telecamera, and there is Rimantas, and there are other people who became friends, and there is Emanuelis Zingeris, and we are received like VIPs. So I can tell you we were very tired, but next morning, as early as I could get up, I got out from my hotel and I started to walk in the streets that were clean, no dead bodies, not houses that once were black, painted in pastel colors. And suddenly I felt so much at home. I started to walk through the streets, and all the things that I remembered came back to me. And it was such a fantastic healing process to come back where I was and to remember and to feel so with myself. The only thing is the language that the people were speaking in the street later that I did not understand. But my past was there, and I must tell you that my past was up to the war when I was 7 was paradise. My parents, who were certainly very worried about anti-Semitism, about the war and so on, never let me feel it. I felt that the world was mine. And then, even in the ghetto, even in the labor camp, I somehow had the belief that this enormous love that I felt of my parents will take care of me. They won't let anything bad happen to me. Later, I survived with my mother, and we learned that my father was shot just days before the Russian arrived. It was a terrible loss, of course, and by the time I arrived to Vilnius, I was already so many years older. And the friendship and the welcome that we received was so extraordinary that suddenly I said, my goodness, how stupid I was that I didn't come there before. Anyway, what can I say? Emanuelis managed to have for me a beautiful show in the picture gallery of Vilnius. Then later on, Markas took care of another show at the museum. Today, I understand the Samuelis Bacchus Museum is very successful, has a lot of visitors. My paintings speak to them. My paintings say something. And I have the dearest of friends in Vilnius. So what could have I imagined? My goodness, I am just a very lucky devil. That's what I am. And let me tell you about in between those two things. In between those two things, I grew up in a certain atmosphere of the Vilnius's secular Judaism. It was transforming the traditional Jewish religion that believes in an overpowering entity somewhere outside of man, believes that somehow the divine is between the people, is what people can do to each other and can repair and can achieve. And this kind of spirit was passed on to me. I mean, I could go on for hours talking to you, but I thought maybe I will rather answer some questions, and I'm open to speak about anything that might interest you. I think that a day doesn't have more than 124 hours, so we have all the time for that.
Yeah, thank you very, very much for opening comments. Would you speak you're not on the faculty, although you have these PhDs, which are fabulous honorary PhDs.
I have a problem hearing you. There is an enormous echo in the microphone. I don't know.
Is it this? We turn that off.
It's turned off. It's turned off.
Hold on, Sam. That's not so.
So I'm listening.
And if you speak with this one,
Turn that off and use this one.
or with this one on.
Well, okay. Can you hear me, Sam?
Is better?
Yeah, it's better now. It's sharper.
Is this a?
Is this
Or we could try. You hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Yes.
Okay. And what I was saying is that you have your honorary doctorate degree, but you really haven't been involved directly in a university per se. But I've seen you teach. When we were at the New Museum in Omaha, the children came in. You were there before that, and children, they're teenagers, many of them. But would you speak just to your feeling about that connection to those individuals and what it means for what you feel it means for the world at large, that these children get some kind of exposure like this and have a chance to talk about it?
I understood more or less your question. But I must say there is a problem in the sound, which is a little. I heard you before. You were speaking about Omaha, about the work, there. I think that you had before a much better microphone. I apologize, but hearing is important.
That's okay. It's what I was asking about is your relationship to the children that came in and experience that you have with them. Because it's not a formal education.
I can absolutely. I got you now. I think that this thing there gives me your voice in a much clearer way. I was in Omaha on the occasion of the opening of an exhibition of mine. The exhibition was very successful. Was incredible, attended by maybe among others about 4,000 young people from high schools that were brought by buses to see it, because somehow my visual world did not put the horror of the Holocaust in front of them, and it questioned them. What is it? How is it? And it intrigued them. And then when people were well prepared to explain their questions, brought them to a reality that otherwise would have been very, very difficult to provide, to teach. But there was this very specific moment that I remember touched me enormously. There were 2 classes of creative writing, and they read there in those classes my book, Painted in Words, that was published in 2021, I think. And this was a chapter, this frightening chapter, in which my father carries me on the back and throws me out from a window near the gate of the concentration camp, and shouts to me, "Run!" And this is the last moment I see my father. It was difficult for me to hear, but they read it, and after that there was silence, and after that I had a group of American students come over to me. They wanted to speak to me, and I must say that they were mostly Latinos. They were mostly Black. I realized they were coming from unprivileged areas, and the university was doing a fantastic job by helping them somehow to get education, to become part of the civilized world that is very cruel, but that is necessary. Education is very, very necessary. And I thought, my goodness, this terrible story of a Jewish child in faraway Europe, they don't even know where Lithuania is, suddenly touched them so much that they want to speak to me. And I must say, this contact suddenly of children that somehow have to go through enormous difficulties to survive is something that creates such a bridge that my words, my written words or my painted words can touch people from different backgrounds. And this I realized today because the Learning Center and the Samuel Bach Museum in Omaha, in the middle of Nebraska, the American Midwest, is doing a fantastic job. is doing a fantastic job. And I also know today that the Samuelis Bakas Museum in Vilnius is packed. People discover suddenly my work. People are interested. And I spoke with young Lithuanian journalists. I spoke with 4 or 5 of them over the internet. And I realized that there is an enormous desire to know, to explore, to realize, to try to understand what has happened, because we humans, the best and the worst is in each one of us. And we can do the most extraordinary things. The world is ours if we hold on to the possibilities that are given to us. And I realized it was fantastic to live a life which allowed me to sell paintings as much as I needed for my rather comfortable life, but hold on to an enormous number of paintings that I feel must belong to the public. And this is how I was able to make donations of a very large number of works. Right now, I have put together a list of about 150 works that I will send over to Vilnius in order to enrich the holding of the Samuel Bach Museum. And it is such a privilege that there is an institution that will use these things for education, for information.
That's good. Thanks, Sam. We're going to have a reading, I think.
No reading. I just wanted to thank as well, Sam, for your.
Can you hear, or does it echo again?
Yeah, I heard you much better on this little device before that you had there, but I will do my best to hear you well.
I will pause.
Yeah.
I hope I will, or it's.
Yeah, this is much better.
Much better. So I will use like this. So thank you very much once again. I mean, you again said that you are donating more paintings to mention. It's so important for everyone in Lithuania, but it's much wilder. So it is already one such important point of attraction, but it would be that there would be, as I mentioned, side of pilgrimage, because what you're doing with your work, you're not only transfer us to Vilnius before the Second World War. I would encourage everyone to read Painted in Words. It's amazing book. It's educational, but it's also such a personal, to see the world through the eyes of boy first, but that's all the traveling, you go back to Vilnius and to that world which has been lost. But also I would like also to say as well, and from there also, before going to the main point, I just wanted to pass best regards from Rimantas Stankevičius, whom you mentioned. He wrote today saying he wrote from Samuel Bach Museum in Vilnius saying he wanted to be here. He passes all best regards and that, and so grateful for you, and you really have a good friend. But also have another best friend you mentioned, Emanuelis Zingeris, who came and whom I, without his permission and without his presence, me already spoke about you, and Markas Zingeris as well, how important you were to also have Samuel Bach, but also to cherish the memory of those who were lost in Vilnius Ghetto and in Holocaust and death. But before giving the word to Emanuelis Zingeris, who everybody knows is signatory, I have to read and to say it, so everybody knows, and I think everybody's your friends, old friends, but you're signatory of the 1990 Act of the Reestablishment of State of Lithuania, serving now as a member of the parliament, same as in Lithuania, former director of Vilnius Gaon Jewish State Museum, Honorary Chairman of Lithuanian Jewish Community, Chairman of the National Commission of the Evaluation of the Crimes of Nazi and Soviet occupation regime in Lithuania. You're also chair of the Lithuanian US group of friends in the parliament. I mean, and I can go and go and go, and you all this, but you also almost member of the embassy because you're aware and you know, and just some while back that. But before that, I wanted to read from Markas Zingeris' book, what he wrote about his short story, but I think it also reflects Markas' works, but also Sam Beck's works as well. I could not have written this story without feeling love for those people who will never rise again, without remembering their hopes and illusions. These hopes and illusions are common to all humanity. Also, I felt the need to write this story when I realized with great sadness that entire epoch had slipped into the past. It has been my fate to live throughout a new era. And as I also would like to regret the Mark Zingeris, he gave, and what Samuel Bach also gives, the old colors, those of that time before the World War II, a new light. And Markas and Sam Bach illuminated them, and everyone who was lost and perished during the coronavirus by remembrance, by sunlight of the remembrance. And it's our, I think, obligation as well, a delight to continue and to say the stories and to keep that. So Emanuelis, thank you for being here, and please share your stories and us.
Thank you, Madam Ambassador. Sam, hello and shalom. We are communicating in a strange way, like in, like through radio BBC in 1939. I just have two micros in front of me. Sam,
the microphone is important because then I understand.
Yes. So we were. The issue is that today we are marking, with support of wonderful staff of Lithuanian Embassy here, the 80 years here in Embassy of the Shoah, Holocaust of Lithuanian Jewry, marking being based on the Vilnius Ghetto experience. Vilnius Ghetto was annihilated on 23rd of September of 1943. So the sense of restoration of independence of Lithuania was the contents and the bridge, to build a bridge to the pre-war time when this time was forbidden for us. In Nazi time, it was total annihilation of our relatives. In Soviet time, it was total censorship. We were blocked. After I found in the Ministry of Culture, the archive of the former Jewish museum established by Abraham Sutzkever Kalmanovich and other friends who tried to keep cultural treasures inside of ghetto, of Vilna Ghetto, in the secret places. Museum first artifacts was the book where the book of history, the book of some of Jewish community in Hebrew, when you, yes, Pinkos, where you were made your drawings during the ghetto time. And that was in 1989. So looking to this total emptiness of the contents, when contents was contents of Jewish cultural treasures, Jewish cultural achievements, where it was artificially annihilated, and our memory was annihilated. And during Nazi era, we were not only killed, but our cultural treasures were deported in organized way by Reichsleiter Rosenberg. And after that, to create, and Joseph Stalin closed down the museum. My question will be to you. You feel reconnected with Lithuania, and you are for us, the possibility to say to new generation how Vilnius looked before Second World War. That is extremely important to have the real connection to pre-war Vilnius. It's easy to have connection to pre-war Washington or to pre-war Paris, but it's extremely complicated to have feeling how it was before emptiness came. The new generations of Lithuanians came from other cities, from Kaunas to Vilnius, and they're looking to those buildings who are saying to them nothing. And you are saying in your poetry, how you feel like an inhabitant, like a member of Vilnius community. You brought Vilnius back to us. Vilna is wieder zurückgekommen mit dir. I hope gewollt sagen, dank dir. Und ich bin in einer ganz schrecklichen Lage. I am in terrible shape. Well, I am not only late, but I came after a terrible year when my mother passed away, brother disappeared. I still calling him every day to Mark. I have one good news to you, Sam. I just discovered my new family in United States. The Erwin Zinger here and his marvelous wife found archive footnotes that we are directly connected through my grandmom, Frida. So I am now becoming like you, with one leg here, with one leg in Vilna. So thank you, großen Dank, that you compensated the artificially looted Jewish assets, Jewish memory, Jewish institutions like Ivo, like Strashun Library, like everything what was in this former Jewish Oxford, like Vilna, and they were looted, deported. You, in your every piece of your art, bringing back the feeling how it was to be a Vilner. How wie es zu sein a Vilner. Dank dir.
Thank you so much, dear friend. I must say that whenever people ask me, so where are your roots? What is your identity? And I say I can only say it in Yiddish. I can say it, ich bin a Vilner. I am from Vilna. I know that, you know, the great Yiddish and Hebrew poet Bialik said in one of his poems, the world is seen only once by a human being, and it is only a child who sees the real world and perceives it and then carries it in him. And I think that maybe this is what happened to me. I don't know. I think it is maybe because in my family there was so much love, there was so much dedication to each other. There was something that gave me I think the basis of surviving whatever I have survived, and then giving it further on to my children, to my grandchildren. By now I have, one of my daughters is here with two grandsons, 32 and 25, and they're all adults, and I'm amazed how wonderful these people are. And yes, I think that there is maybe this sense that of the importance of family that I carry in me from our inheritance of Vilna. I wouldn't pretend too much to be really the transporter of these enormous riches that have been destroyed, because as you know, Vilnius was a very complex society. There were religious people. There were secular people, secular Jews. And the secular Jews, there were Yiddishes and there were Hebrews. There were people that wanted only to go to Jerusalem. And there were people who said, no, we will follow Baron Hirsch and we will go to Argentina. I mean, all these was the reality. And in the midst of all that, there were thinkers, there were poets, there were writers. There were incredible riches because Vilnius, or Vilna then, was a center of a very large population, was a cultural center of a very large population. So there was this kind of genius of Vilnius, which is much beyond the individuals that have set it up. There was really something incredible that was lost. But when you think of the last 10,000 years of human history, think of how much was destroyed and lost, and yet man survives. I don't know how it happens, but it's better.
Fabulous. Sam, I have transported for you, because you can't be here, a gift for Emanuelis, and I'd like to open and give that to him.
It will be an enormous pleasure. An enormous pleasure. Let me tell you, Emmanuel, this is something that I have created for you, keeping in mind what is exhibited in the embassy now.
If I could do it, so it come to part there.
Well,
yes.
Don't worry, the embassy will find material to.
So Sam works in all different media, and this is what is the media, Sam? Is it watercolor, gouache?
Oh, this is gouache. It's mostly gouache. Yeah.
I'm not deserved to have that. That is something, yes.
No, there, I don't know what you see.
Yeah, it's
you
so
see
much
me in it.
Yeah, that is, you know, our Gesslach. Our
Exactly.
You remember,
I have put into it.
Our Gesslach, our Teichen, and all artifacts of our everyday life in one's pure life, authentic life, will now not exist, including the remarkable piece inside of all your symbols. Will now every student now is recognizing what that means. You're about symbolism. Thank you. Thank you so much. It will be in the most vulnerable place next to my Act of Independence of Lithuania.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be able to.
Just so you know, this man has become known as No Problem. And he's no problem because whenever any issue came up about Sam's work, getting to Lithuania to Vilnius from air conditioning, we have to have insurance, somebody has to ship it. He was no problem. So we got this to him, no problem.
Thank you. I would like to say thank you for from the beginning supporting Samuel, but that is most important, that you made an environment to feel him at home with your basic support. Thank you for your better gallery and everything what is done by you in Boston. Thank you.
And I don't know, I wish anyway, I would dear maybe some, I presume there would be some questions from the audience as well, because such a unique opportunity to ask someone, but also Emanuelis Zingeris.
More direction, Samuel Bach.
You mentioned you were, can you hear me?
Absolutely, yes.
Can you, I don't know if you can hear me.
You can come here and make it so that.
I can repeat if you want. There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
You mentioned that you were sort of maybe had some ambivalence about the whole issue of reopening wounds. And that comes up a lot, right? And I'm wondering if you could talk more about that. I mean, it sounds like that worked out okay for you, but maybe it doesn't for everyone. Or, you know, how do you do it in a way that's they'll heal rather than bleed out, or, you know?
You are, yes, you're reaching a terrain which is highly philosophical and psychological. You know, I participated at the opening of the Holocaust Museum in Houston. And then there was the head of the Yad Vashem speaking to the people and saying, screaming to them, never forget and never forgive. And I felt very uncomfortable about it. You know, and I thought about the very discussed famous speech of Churchill after the end of World War II. He said, right now, if we go on with the hatred among the nations, we will condemn ourselves. If we want to have a future, we must learn to put it aside and build something together.
Yeah.
As I said before, I believe that the best and the worst is embedded in each one of us, and we can make choices. We can make choices when we have enough information, when we have enough knowledge, when our brain was not formed by forces that try to do that in the world. Yes, when I thought of Vilnius, when I thought of my childhood, I did not think of the two Lithuanians who banged into our door and screamed at us, "Get out, woman and child, and you go to the ghetto." I didn't think of that, but I thought of Sister Maria Mikulska, of Brother Stakauskas, of Engineer Žemaitis, who risked their lives to save us. So there is not a prescription how one heals wounds. You ask yourself questions, you try to find answers, you find then the answer of the answers that says that there are no final answers to any questions, and you go on questioning, and you don't simplify things, you don't ever simplify things. And finally, you try to bring up memory as much as possible, because this is something that you save, this is something that you can give to other people to go on with it. And I must say, there is a Laima Vince, who just made her doctorate in the University of Vilnius, dedicated a whole chapter to my book, Painted in Words, which deals with the healing of wounds. And I think that it helped me a lot. It helped me a lot to write my book, to measure myself with my remembering of things. And we all know that remembrance, that memory is a recreation. Memory is not a folder that holds something specific. Memory is always something, the things of the past, always connected to the present. And it helped me enormously. It helped me enormously to write, to re-examine things, to think of things. And the worst thing is sentimentality, which never helps people to heal anything. So get away from that, get away from that. And this is why in my book, I begin the story with how I'm getting out from the Malina, and I'm with my mother, and the first Jewish woman that we meet is crying, sobbing. She's with a little girl, and my mother shouts to her, Nadia, what's happened? She says, they killed my husband. She says, when? She said, just now. We just came out, and half an hour ago they killed my husband. And my mother said, oh, these terrible Germans, Lithuanians, whatever, who did it. No. She says, it's not Lithuanians, it's not Germans. It's a Jewish partisan who killed my husband. Ah, why? He shouted to them, dirty policeman, you were a policeman in the ghetto. I remember this man very well from the ghetto. He was a very nice man. He was a policeman because he thought that with that he will bring bread and maybe sometimes some milk for his child in the ghetto. So I started with that just to say we are capable of the best and the worst. And maybe if we go in this difficult, not determined route between those two opposite sides, we can find some acceptance. Healing is a very difficult word. Healing is never totally possible, but there is an acceptance of the world, the acceptance of our human possibilities, the acceptance, of what we can get, the acceptance of sometimes dealing with things that we cannot change. I really have no complete answer to your question. I'm sorry.
Any other question?
You might want to speak. Well, it's for Mr. Zingeris. Hi, Sammy. I'm Helen Kavinsky's daughter, Aviva Kepner.
I hear you very badly. Can you please come closer to the microphone?
Yeah, I'm Aviva Kepner. I'm Helen Kavinsky's daughter. You know her as an artist from Poland, also a survivor. My mother, I think, was friends with you in Paris. Maybe not. He doesn't. Helen Kavinsky? No, anyhow.
You hear it, Sam?
Yeah, I hear, yes. Not very well, but I hear.
Can I just look at him when I... So, I don't know if you remember me.
I remember very well.
So, I want you to know you were the bravest man I've ever met in my life. It was the most harrowing evening of my life. I produced and conceived of Partisans of Vilna, yes, the film about the Vilna Ghetto. In 1990, for a brief moment, there was a Jewish film festival in Moscow. The head of EVO was already in Vilna.
89.
No, 1990.
In the
summer,
1990s, yes.
And he said, come to Moscow with, come to Vilna with the film David Rubnik was covering, yes, for the New York Times. Yes. I said, David, is it okay? They're surrounded. He says, go. So I went with my 3 cans of 16mm film. I felt I was like a partisan on a train. I come in, and just like tonight, just at the last minute, he comes in to introduce the film, and we showed it to Parliament, no?
Right.
So Sam sends his love. He had a funeral. He would come down. And like I said, the city was surrounded, right?
The city was overwhelmed with the film. Partisans of Vilna Ghetto was done in time. It was like a start moment for re-education of Lithuania and understanding what's mean uprisal against evil. And I just was Sam. Can you hear me too?
Yeah, I do hear you very well.
It was day of in the April. It was day when Warsaw commemorated uprisal in Warsaw Ghetto. And President Duda, he did a good thing. He awarded all leaders of Warsaw Ghetto with the highest Polish awards. Anulewicz become general award of Poland.
Edelman.
Edelman, yes, he survived. I would like to tell to the audience that he survived, and he was moral criterium in Poland for long years, and everyone were awarded. So now I just brought my new resolution in Parliament of Lithuania to award the leaders the leaders of spiritual resistance of Vilnius Ghetto. They should be awarded. Well, we should have example to follow. Not only good example of brave guys who fought Soviet regime, but Jewish guys who fought Nazi regime in the very difficult circumstances with no one chance to survive. No 1% of surviving if you have a gun brought probably by good Lithuanians, good Poles, guns, 3 bullets, 4 bullets, 5 bullets, but to have an idea, not to become a slave, not to have a fear, not to be scared, but resist. And those here, thank you for the film done years ago. Thank you, Sam. You know, you were like a continuation of this film for us. And now we have battle in Lithuania. Who is a hero? And be sure, this battle will go on, and we will be trying to understand that the biggest part of Lithuanian society, the guys who were resisting in Vilnius Ghetto, like the United Frank Partisan Organization and all other guys, they will become heroes of Lithuanians. That's extremely important. So your books and the example of anti-Nazi resistance in ghetto during Second World War, and righteous people. And righteous people, there are examples to follow.
So what I'd love to do is bring the film back to Vilna with you there, and I'd like to also show it another evening in the embassy. I live in town, so it's easy. So Sam, do you remember my mother? This is Mother in the North. Do you remember Helen Kavinsky? She's an artist.
Of course, I remember your mother. I remember your mother so well.
Not making this up. No, she talked about you fondly, and I have one of your prints my mother gave me.
Yeah,
and I just finished a film about her and my uncle of how they survived in Poland and Germany. So
yes,
you can imagine in Warsaw during the 80 years of resistance of Warsaw Ghetto. Just now, it was day when my brother Mark, his poetry book, Mark Zinger, passed away. It was in late April, and I was in Warsaw the same day. Can you imagine? And the same day, the item. Sound in Warsaw. Well, it's become a song of Warsaw Ghetto. Well, you know the story of this Austrian officer Smith. He brought in secrecy, in underground, he brought the resistance from Vilnius Ghetto to Warsaw, and that's become a European Jewish item. And I was asking just my dear friend ambassador to bring for us few sounds of this most important song, who after that become probably a song of Israeli army too, Haganah and others, but it was song of our resistance, that we not become slaves. We resisted. Yes.
Right. And I think this shows the example. I don't know how many of you, I know my friend Manny, us of second generation, to continue the stories. Anyhow, I'm glad you remember that evening.
Yes.
So
thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming. Thank you. It's a miracle that you're here.
Coming late, and Sam is so long with us as well. With me, one last comment, or I recognize the State Department also is here, please. So close friends of ours. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, so probably face the microphone and.
I hope that you're not State Department, that you have a name.
I do. Stacy, we actually met at the residence of Ambassador Gilchrist in December.
Yes.
Yeah, so yes, I'm Stacy Davis, the Deputy Special Envoy for Holocaust Issues at the State Department, and want to thank you for your role, and you and the government of Lithuania in passing the important compensation bill. And thank you. And just to say, sir, that we were able in Vilnius to visit Vilnius in December, and Ambassador Gilchrist spoke very highly of your art. So we made it a point to visit the museum and see it while we were there. So thank you very much for sharing a little bit of your story now. Thank you for your courage in continuing to talk about it and to paint about it. And just so you know, the United States government believes in the importance of Holocaust issues and combating anti-Semitism in our foreign policy. And happy to be here tonight to meet you virtually. Thank you.
Thank you. I feel that I'm with you. I'm sorry that I'm such a big size. That is the big screen that kind of makes me so superhumanly sizable, but
that you are almost superhero as well with what you did and what you are doing, and that's the thing you say standing.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, goodbye to all of you.
There is 1 minute.
One more.
There is still something. Okay, I'm here. I'm yours. You just tell me when you had enough of me.
I'm afraid it was difficult to start, but it's more difficult to finish this wonderful evening.
Welcome. Baron, Rabbi Elchanan Baron.
Since we have multiple issues here that somehow are fusing together, the honoring of Samuel Beck and this contribution to, call it, rebirth of Jewish culture in Vilna. We have the passing of your brother. I clearly remember my last meeting with him was not long before he passed away, as we know, was suddenly. And as well, the commemoration of the 80th anniversary of the liquidation of the Vilnius Ghetto.
And my mother,
And your mother's yard site was a few days ago. We were in Kovna together. I just want to share one idea, because we keep on talking about, everybody's talking about memory. My name is Rabbi Baron. I'm a rabbinical emissary. I come obviously from Litvak stock, rabbinical emissary to Lithuania to protect, to preserve the Jewish heritage in Lithuania. I'm there all the time, back and forth commuting to Vilna. I was there last week and I'll be there next week. Please God. I just want to say about how relevant today, because that's what we're talking about. So I want to share with you a story of what goes on right now. Sometimes when I travel, I end up it's particularly in Germany, and just flying through whatever, Frankfurt is a big hub. If you fly a lot, you'll end up there. And I try personally, not to think, although I'm a historian and I know a tremendous amount about the Holocaust, maybe too much, but I try not to think about it all the time, especially my work in Lithuania. It could be very depressing. It's like a graveyard of the Jewish people, Lithuania. They asked me, we want to do some restoration, so they asked me to represent the Jewish community. I said, the Jewish community is in the ground here in Lithuania. So I try not to think about it, but sometimes, like, I'll see a border guard, let's say a German border guard, and somehow it'll come over me, and I'll say, like, where was your grandfather when my entire family was murdered? Like, what was he doing? Where was he? What did he think of what was going on? So once, a couple of years ago, it happened. Somehow, the feeling came over to me, and I just blurted it out. And he said, "Oh, the Holocaust, that was a long time ago. That was a long time ago, for young people." I said, "Long time ago?" I said, "We have a prayer called the Yizkor prayer. And we say it several times a year, and we talk about all the martyred members of the family. But I want to share something much more personal. I have a close friend. His name is Yaakov Beitler. Some of you may have heard the name. His mother is Rose Beitler. She was one of the 5 people that came out of Ponar, out of the pits alive. When we talk about the liquidation of the Vilnius Ghetto, the people of the Vilnius Ghetto are in Ponar. That's where they are, and Emanuel is 100% correct in the need for a proper museum there and a proper memorial. It's one of the most important sites in all of Europe. But his mother came out alive. She was 7 years old, and she wasn't, I believe she wasn't even wounded, but she was lying under a lot of bodies. And some lady came, I imagine Lithuanian. I didn't get, you'll hear in a minute why I don't know the precise story. And a lady came and walked around the pits and said, "Is anyone alive? Is anyone alive? Can anyone hear me? Can you talk?" And she said, this little 7-year-old girl, she said, "Yes, I'm alive. I'm alive." And she said, "Well, can you come out?" She said, "I can't. There's all these people on top of me." And she slowly fished this girl out. And she's alive today. Her name is Rose Beitler. You can look it up. There's a movie, documentary about her life and about her miraculous escape, etc. The story I want to share with you and why I want to say how relevant this is that my friend Jakob Beitler, he's a friend, a neighbor. He's also very involved in our activities. And the first meeting I had with Ambassador Lina in Tel Aviv, he was there. He gave her the book written about his mother with a dedication. And he's never seen the movie, the documentary about his mother. He's never seen it. It's already many years. It's out, I don't know, it's 5 or 10 years, maybe 10 years, the 70th. And he's never seen it. He won't see it. He refuses to see it. He also refuses to come to Lithuania. He just can't deal with it. And this is the next generation, right? But how his mother was affected and that he said to me once or twice, he said, if you really need me to come for the activities, I'll come special because of the importance of it. But otherwise he won't come. Now, this is a fellow who was born way after the Holocaust, right? He's a fellow, let's say he's 60. And he won't look at the movie about his mother's life because he can't deal with it. That's how much pain there is in the next generation. So there are a lot of people that this is very much part of their life today. I mean, the liquidation of the Vilnius Ghetto and Ponar. There are a lot of people. It's a very difficult place to be. Right? I imagine that most of you have been there. It's a very difficult place to be. My wife was just telling you about how that place is one of the worst places. And since we are talking about it, I won't make it all sad, but I will say I have a recording of what my last rabbi and teacher, Rabbi Shapiro, is from Shkotville. How do you? Shkotville. So he was in Ponar, and I have the recording of all the places, but the Ponar recording is the worst. And the silence in between his words and measured words. And he says in the Torah, it says about Aaron, he lost his 2 children, and it says he was silent. That's what the words are. It says 2 words, Vayidom Aaron. Aaron was silent. And he said that words are the explanation of the soul, the ability to communicate. And there's some things that are so difficult that cannot be communicated. They are not communicated. There are no words that were created to communicate these things. And he said that that's what it is. Ponar is a place that there's no describing. Words cannot describe the inhumanity of what went on in this place. And he went on to say his rabbinic idea why it says in the Torah that God is revenge. It's the God of revenge. And he said that there's no such thing. Humanity cannot deal with this. And was mentioned before about forgiving. Samuel mentioned, we don't have the capacity. We don't have a capacity for revenge or punishment. It's not relevant to us. We go on. That's what my father taught me, a survivor, and we go on. It's left to God. In a place like that, we don't have words. We don't have the correct words to say. So I wanted to share with you that it's extremely relevant for those that know, that have it in their family, that know the history, and it's very, very relevant today. 80 years later, it's not some long forgotten thing like the border guard said to me. Oh, the Holocaust, that was a long time ago. So it's with us, and we will remember. Thank you for the opportunity, and congratulations to everybody.
Thank you. I only wanted just to add something when we speak about the Holocaust.
Yes.
There is Rwanda. There is a lot of genocides going on this very moment in the world. And if we Jews want to be human, we have to recognize that every human life on the planet is holy. We have to recognize that. And to think that we have an exclusivity to suffering is really not my cup of tea. I'm sorry, I disagree with a lot of concepts that lead today Israel and the Jews to a new kind of nationalism. I hope it will be avoided. I very deeply hope so.
Probably all of us have to remember what happened to avoid that would happen in the future, something like what is that. So,
for that, so we are finishing, I think, but before that, I would ask ourselves to read Mark Zingeris' poem. For that, I think that is the must for this evening as well, which also connects and
translated by
that would be English translated, especially for this evening as well. So.
Good evening, everybody. I hope that through the various microphones, people will be able to hear me. I want to preface the reading of these poems to say that they were translated by the author Laima Vince, who Sam has mentioned. So she translated these 3 poems that I'm going to read to you right now. And the first one is called The Burning of the Ghetto, and it is about in memory of the 1943 Warsaw Ghetto uprising. I am the Warsaw Ghetto. I am its hard-scrabble mounds, its sack of potatoes and filthy child. I am the Warsaw Ghetto, oh my homeland, flooded, Solomon's wine, blood from balconies, corpses on rooftops. I am a month eternal above the street's skeletons, above love's skeleton. I am the Warsaw Ghetto. Let's join the fight, sticks held high, beards forward, defy kitchen greed. Children like soldiers from our balconies. When the sun's medallions on a backdrop of dirt and their gray blood, and eyes alive and rushing, and the violin's motif with centuries of blood. That's the first poem. And the second is titled, You Said That I Like to Grumble. You say that I like to grumble at the world while quietly strolling through the park. Have you ever dreamed the noise of the streets, your parents forced beneath arcs of triumph? And have you twisted the arms of your soul, bullied it, and then tried to get up every morning? Do you know how it feels, although young, to crawl as though that was all you could? Have I not lived? You say that in the sphere of the soul, it is possible to prove things with beautiful theorems, but don't break through the window together with the frame. When your soul will break away like a soaring hawk, and when everyone outdoors kneels obediently, your soul will rise like a fool with bloody lips. Have I not lived? You like it that I enjoy singing about that ideal that blocks out the rain, the woman who I will die never having touched. You admire all this, but you must brush your hair. Life is such a serious thing. What does a foolish poet know about it? And singing my song, I've grown old. Have I not lived? And the last poem. It's called The Oberleutnant's Love. Forgive me for my German pronunciation. A German wearing the epaulets of an Oberleutnant, fine stitching in silver thread, fell in love with my mom. Mom was washing windows in the hospital for soldiers. The sky of the graduating class waltz shined in the window. The German's heavy arm was bound in a cast. He loved my slender mother, not knowing she was a Jew. We must go to the movies together, to the movies. 999. Why not? Hitler won't let us. The soldiers grew quiet. The captain led Mom along with her work battalion into the ghetto, and he watched from afar as they shook potatoes out of their trousers and yanked their bras over their heads, searching for cheese. Thank you. In memory of Mark.
Thank you for this moment. You just passed away a few months ago. You know, it's incredible loss for my family, and
And in his creativity, he was 10 years older like me, 10 years older, and he was like a teacher for me all my life. Before he died, I dreamed that I am on his shoulder and he's going, and he's running, and we started to fly. That was dream before he passed away. And all his 6 books, all 6 books will be probably with some friendly support, will be probably published in English. And his last book, I'm sorry to say about current, his last book is about how Russia is occupying Lithuania. I'm sorry, but that's his last novel about that. It's now in printing. So this, looking to the current Ukrainian realities, well, we are staying not only with our past, but with our future. So I would like to say thank you so much for those who know, who are friendly to Mark, and thank you for remembering him. Thanks a lot.
So, thank you very much. It was wonderful evening, emotional, touchy. Thank you, Samuel, for joining, for being, and for doing what you do, and for what you are and how you are. You are memory, but also you are in big hope for us as well, and that's for the future. I think that is valid, and what you mentioned also, I think with young people as well, that's also important as well. And thank you all for being with us. Very big thanks for Emanuelis Zingeris for coming with such a, I explained why you were late or something like that, with such big that, but it's so important. And Dr. Herbert, thank you very much for being. We have a very small gift to you. It's what we started, that Vilnius is celebrating 700 years. So it's, I know it cannot be nothing compared with Samuel Bach, but it's this very modest lithograph for Vilnius, some that, so just at least to remember it. Thank you, Samuel. I hope we'll see you, but in Vilnius, in the embassy, and definitely in Boston. I know how busy you are and how many projects you have. So yeah, very happy also that you be part. And thank you for this late being until the end with us. And
thank you.
I would like to, it's my tiny terror attempt against Ambassador. I would like to say, Ambassador, thank you for your wonderful team working, and thank you for your sincerity and your possibility to go deeper, to understand the nuances and shadows from the history, from the past, and keeping the line that the free world should be created, being based on the memory of those who are basis for this future, means for those heroes who were they not gave up, and they are our future. Well, our children in Lithuania should know which example they should follow. Very simple. Thank you, Ambassador. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you once again.
Thank you so much.
We don't want to disconnect with you, so you are part of us.
All the best
your
to
painting,
you.
but that's, thank you very much. Yeah.
We see you still.